Welcome to the STG Warriors podcast. Today we'll be in conversation with Mr. Jesse Hildebrand. Mr. Jesse is the Vice President of Education at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, an educational nonprofit that connects scientists, explorers, and more with kids around the world for free through a digital program. He's the lead on the Backyard Bio campaign, founder of the Science Literacy Week, and a fellow of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. Welcome. It is an honor to have you on our show, Mr. Jesse.
Well, thank you so much, Simmer. It's an honor to be here. I'm so excited to join you guys today, and I've been loving all your enthusiasm in the chat bars and joining in on so many of our programs. It's been such a thrill to see you guys, and truly you are one of the most engaged and excited classrooms I've ever run across. So I can't wait to hear your questions today and to learn from you guys just as much as hopefully I can help teach you guys today. So thank you.
Well, likewise, we are excited too. So before we dive into the conversation, to help our listeners audibly visualize the whole conversation, can you tell us where are you right now? What is the weather like outside? And what can you see from your window right now?
Yeah, so I'm in a place called St. Catharines, Ontario. So it's a fairly small town. It's about 140,000 people, and it's right about an hour away from Toronto. So my whole life I've lived in Toronto, Canada's biggest city. It has about 2.7 million people. And I've recently moved because my fiance, she got a job at a local university here. So we drove around and we're basically right on the edge of Lake Ontario. So one of the biggest lakes in the world. So it's nice and cool. We get to go for walks by the lake. Right now it's 26 degrees Celsius here. And if I look out my window, I have a really nice view of my window. Actually, I can see for about 25 kilometers out to a ridge and an escarpment, all forest all the way with a few buildings popping up between. So it's a really nice part of the world. And there's a lot of wine grown here. So this part of Canada is really known for its wine. I'm not a huge drinker, but it's nice to know that area. And there's a lot of farm country around me too. So that's where I am.
Back here in Bangalore, we are located in southern India, and Bangalore is known as the city of lakes, as well as the garden city of India, as well as the IT city of India. So it is a healthy mix of nature as well as technology. And outside my window, I can see lots of buildings. I can see a metro station, and I can see a train which is getting ready to go to its next destination.
Cool.
And it's really chilly back here in Bangalore, so we need to get our jackets out whenever it's evening.
Nice.
Right. Jumping right into the questions, the STG Warriors wanted to know, what does the typical day in the life of Mr. Hildebrand look like?
Yeah, so I mean, as you mentioned, I get to do this amazing role with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And so a lot of that is setting up these programs. We do 40 to 50 programs every single month. So my days are involved with running those programs, being a host like you've had the chance to see. I've got to get classrooms involved. So I've got to reach out to all the classrooms, confirm to make sure that they're all good. If I'm going to have a new speaker on, we've got to make sure that they're good. So I do a lot of video work like this. I talk with speakers, I talk with groups, I make sure everyone's set up. I have a lot of phone calls with people around Canada and around the world, which I'm very lucky for. And so that's basically it. End of the day, I try and relax as much as possible. Sometimes my work day carries on into the late evening. I'm sure your teacher is familiar with that. I try and get out, go for walks, enjoy myself, and make a nice dinner every night and have it at home and then sit down at the dinner table, and that's a nice end to the day after a lot of time on the computer. So that's a typical day.
Well, that's great to hear. And I can totally resonate as a podcast host. You must be getting so many amazing opportunities to host such amazing explorers and scientists and connecting with classrooms and people around the world. And we wanted to ask you that what you're doing today must be impacted by your childhood. So we wanted to know, what did Jesse's childhood look like? And did it impact the work that he's doing today with students? If so, how?
Well, my childhood literally inspired everything I do now. So when I was much younger than you, when I was 4 years old, I was inspired by a man named Steve Irwin. He was called the crocodile hunter, and he didn't hunt crocodiles, but he went and explored and found them and shared his love of nature. And so by 4 years old, I knew that I wanted to do this for a living. I thought, I cannot believe people can make a living talking about how passionate they are about science and nature. And so my birthday parties were just, books and movies and things so I could learn as much as possible. All these books on my bookshelf behind me, all inspired by what I learned as a kid. And so Basically, yes, I've been very, very lucky. I pinch myself daily. I'm so lucky to get to do exactly what I wanted to do and I set out to do when I was 4. And I've followed that passion ever since. And I hope it shines through in all the broadcasts. So yeah, I'm very lucky to have that as a situation.
Absolutely. His show was wonderful, Mr. Steve Irwin's show. And we are also on our nature journey and getting inspired by all the stuff on Backyard Bio. So we'll be coming to that in the later part of the podcast. So you wear many, many hats, like as a mentor, as the Vice President of Education, and as a host as well. So what skills are required for each of these hats, and which is your favorite hat?
Yeah, favorite hat is host. I love being a host. I think I can tell that you love being a host as well. You're fantastic at it. It's so much fun to get to build up questions and share that enthusiasm and keep the conversation going and have a good time with it and sort of excite people. And so I really, really enjoy that. The other hats, when I get to do this work in the background, it's a lot of things that aren't quite as exciting. It's making sure that, a spreadsheet is filled out properly. It's making sure that everyone's got a registration email. But that work leads into the hosting bit. By virtue of the fact that I work really hard at some of that, which isn't the most exciting stuff, it's a lot of copying and pasting and sharing stuff, it means that I can end up with a program where we have 300 kids tuning in. And so that's so worthwhile to see that work lead to fruition in this work. And the biggest skill that's required as a host, is I think you're already very adept at, is keeping that energy up and making sure that everybody feels comfortable. It sounds silly, but if people aren't comfortable, especially if the speaker isn't comfortable, if they're nervous about the program, people aren't going to be as engaged with it. They're not going to be as excited. If kids aren't encouraged to share questions, then it's going to be then you have to fill that role and people feel awkward. And so the key for me in my time before every broadcast is making sure everyone is at ease, excited, ready, and keen to share. And so that's the biggest fun for me, and that's what I love to do.
Absolutely, and indeed there's a lot of work to do in the background, and that's what leads to the final product, which is absolutely amazing. Your enthusiasm right now is totally infectious, and that is again a skill that most of the STG warriors resonate with. So now we know that you are an excellent science communicator. So we wanted to know that, is it an inborn trait or did you work on it? And what advice would you give to students who want to become like you?
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for thinking of me as an excellent science communicator. I appreciate that immensely. The passion is inborn. When I was a little kid, I was equally excited. I would be dragging at my mother's, shirt to tell her about the coolest new fact that I found out when I was a really young boy. I told all my friends at school, all my teachers. They gave me extra assignments to do because I was just so passionate. And I think that is a big element of being a science communicator, is you have to be able to convey that enthusiasm. The skill, talking to a camera, these things are not inborn at all. Like I've hosted over 1,000 broadcasts now with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And so if you watch my earlier ones, and they're all on YouTube, you can see I got a lot better over time. I mean, you do pick up those skills. You see how presenters like to speak as well. And so the biggest piece of advice, practice. And the second biggest piece of advice, look and follow other people that you are inspired by. If you love Steve Irwin, if you love David Attenborough or Jane Goodall, watch how they do it. There is a craft behind science communication, and the way that they draw in an audience and get you excited is something that anyone can emulate. So by virtue of you hosting this program right now, you will have seen other science communicators, and maybe you've picked up tips and tricks along the way. That's the same for everybody. And so just find someone that really their work resonates with you, and follow and try your best, but make it your own as well. And I think that's half the fun of this job.
We SDG warriors love to follow role models, and as you mentioned on our podcast, the biggest skill that we are picking up, especially from scientists, explorers, and even you, is the art of storytelling and how to audibly visualize the whole conversation and how to audibly visualize others' stories, how their life goes on, and making lifelong learning a part of a story or just like a tale. So we wanted to know that, how do you prepare yourself as a host, and which challenges do you face, and how do you exactly counter these?
Yeah, so I prepare myself by learning as much as possible about the topic and the speaker as I can. Sometimes that's not possible in a big way. Sometimes I have 5 or 6 broadcasts in a day, and I have to learn everything that I can about that person in the 10 minutes ahead of time. So the biggest thing for me is having that knowledge base. So the more you read, the more you learn, the more you understand a topic, the more, having been in 1,000 broadcasts now, if we do a topic on marine plastics, I have a lot of information that I can draw upon to introduce into that session, to keep it going, to keep it exciting, to challenge the speaker. And so having that broad knowledge base is really, really helpful as a host. And then again, making sure you know about the person. You'll find in a lot of hosting things, if you see this in the world, people will read off a sheet. They'll get ready for they'll be hosting and they'll say, so-and-so has done this and so-and-so has done all this. And that's great, it's fine, but it doesn't draw you in. So what I always like to do is I always talk to the camera. And I find that if I don't say every single thing about the person, that's okay. But if I tell you the main gist about them and I build it up, people are naturally drawn in and they're more excited. So that's always special to me. I try never to read if I can. It took a long, long time to get good at that. Easily several years before I was able to competently do that. So yeah, that's how I prepare. And then the challenges, with video broadcasts, as I know you know, anything can go wrong. The key with it is to be natural about that. Everyone respects that things can go wrong. Everyone is ready for things to go wrong. And so just, make it do. If the speaker leaves the conversation, if their computer dies, talk about something else that you guys have done. Share more stories, get people excited. Say we're going to wait a few minutes and tell people other information. If no one asks any questions, have questions prepared so that you can ask the speaker to make sure that the whole conversation goes really well. So those sort of prep things come very naturally to me now. Back to your earlier question, they took a lot of practice to pick up those skills. But that's the things that can go wrong. And I find if you watch any of my YouTube programs, you'll see something usually goes a little wrong every time. And just roll with it. And I think that's the fun for me, is that I've gotten pretty good at doing that, which is nice.
Absolutely. Being natural about things and being a lifelong learner, having knowledge about the person who's going to come and the things that entrust that person, preparing to talk to the camera and to the audience. Those are some of the things that we must be prepared for, and that's a big learning right now. So, Mr. Jesse, as students, we love watching your show as you spread science and sunshine at the same time. Is there something that dims this sunshine, and what do you do to get back that sunshine?
Yeah, this is a totally unique question I've ever heard in anything I've ever seen. So I love this question. Yes, it's funny. I'm really glad. If I'm bringing sunshine into the world, that is my biggest goal in life. And so thank you very much for that sentiment. No one is like happy-go-lucky all the time. There are definitely times where I go to work and I'm like, I'd rather not be doing this today. Or maybe something bad has happened and I'm a little, bummed. It really does help to remind myself the type of job that I have. Most people on this planet would die to have a job where they get to talk to kids and talk with scientists and explorers and share that. I have one of the truly luckiest jobs on the planet. That knowledge, that gratitude helps a lot. I find being grateful in general in life is a really good thing. No matter what your situation may be, counting your blessings is a really nice way to go through life. There are very few things that are truly terrible. Most things are a matter of perspective to some degree or another. And so I think that perspective in general helps you get over a lot of challenges. I like to listen to, I'll say this, and our kids at the SCG Warriors can look this up after. Carl Sagan is one of the greatest science communicators of all time, probably the best actually. And he inspired a love of space and the cosmos with billions of people around the world. And one of his classic lines is something called the pale blue dot. So it's a book, but it's a section of the book. It's like one big couple paragraphs near the beginning. And if you look up pale blue dot on YouTube, you can hear him speak this central message. Truly, if I am sad, if I am like, going, oh, why am I doing this? If I listen to pale blue dot, I'm right back where I need to be. It's such a sweeping vision of positivity for humankind. It's such a sense of humility you gain from science and the universe that I don't think anyone could listen to it without being uplifted. And so that's what always does the trick for me. So I love that question. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and we will totally get back to that paragraph. And we learned that we should be grateful and count our blessings. And we wanted to know that what was the inspiration behind Backyard Bio, because we have been working on it for so many days and are so very excited to take that forward. So what was the inspiration?
Yeah, I love nature. I've always loved nature. When I travel, when I've been lucky enough to travel in my life, I travel in pursuit of nature, of interacting with animals, of seeing wild places. And that's always been the most profound influence in my life. But with Backyard Bio, it's something that I've been, toying with for a very, very long time as an idea. And the idea really is, I can walk out my door in St. Catharines, you can walk out your door in Bangalore, and if you really observe, if you take 10 minutes to really pay attention to the living things around you, look and listen to what there is, I pretty much guarantee that anywhere on this planet, you'll find 10 species, at least, if not many more. And that's amazing to think that wherever you are on a huge planet, you can find birds and insects and fungi and plants and this profusion of life that is so wondrous. And so that's the main inspiration, is that the world is a wonderful place. And I really want people to recognize that, to see that. And this is true of all of our work, I don't care if people become scientists. I don't want to become a scientist personally. I love talking about it much more than I want to become a scientist, but I want people to appreciate it. And I think the simplest things often foster the deepest appreciation. And so if people take the mindset of Backyard Bio, that's the inspiration for me, is that, that knowledge that I can go out and find that life inspires me to want to travel. It inspires me to want to share it. And so I want everyone to feel that way. And so that was the idea behind the campaign. And I know we've got more questions to dive into that, but that's the thing behind all of it to me. And if I lose sight of that, I always come back to that central message that it's such an inspiring world out there, and I want everyone to feel as excited as I am.
Yes, before we hardly even notice nature around us, with the Backyard Bio program, now instead of seeing, we actually observe, and instead of hearing those monkeys, squawk and everything, we actually listen to them and make observations. And those are some of the fun things that we learned because of Backyard Bio. So we also wanted to know that with Backyard Bio being a global event, do you notice any trend across different locations?
So the biggest trend, truly, I'm not just saying this because you guys are joining in India, Indian classrooms and kids, you guys are the most excited on the planet. Like, it's so unbelievable. It's so interesting to me. I've had the chance to talk to classes in England, South Korea, across Canada and the US and more. The classes that I've had the chance to talk to in India are truly like, you guys, your passion for learning is so astonishing. I love getting to work with kids in North America. I truly do. I am a kid in North America. Your passion for learning is so next level. It's unbelievable. The fact that you take this idea and make it your own and take it to places that I couldn't even have dreamed of. And you've done this in a matter of weeks. That is astonishing to me. I am in awe. I'm not worthy of your level of Backyard Bio, exploring by the seat of your pants, enthusiasm in general. That's been shocking and wonderful to me. Literally, I'm so excited for the future of India and the future of the world, just based on the amount of excitement that you guys bring to learning. Truly, I am not sarcastic about that in any way. I'm not joking. It's unbelievable. So that's my favorite thing, truly. And I'm hoping for next year we can get so many more classes around India involved, so that we can partner them with other classes around the world, so that you can inspire all those other kids. Because nothing will inspire other kids more than seeing the passion that you guys bring to these sorts of opportunities. So that's my answer.
Thank you so much for giving us such a big compliment, and your passion is totally infectious. And for Indian students, it's truly, we have one motto, that we should act local and think global. So that is what keeps us going, and that is what we look forward to doing with all other classrooms around the world, and we can't wait to collaborate. So we wanted to know that what makes for a successful Backyard Bio event, and what has been your biggest learning from the program?
So this is interesting, because this is the first year that we ever took it national. Last year it was a very small thing. We just did a few teachers, and we saw it went, and it went really, really well. And so I was curious, what would be the biggest takeaway for me? The biggest takeaway, and what made it successful, the biggest learning from it all at once, is the passion and joy that teachers have collaborating with one another and classrooms have. It is fantastic to have an expert in. I'm honored to be here as a Canadian, getting to talk to you guys in India. That's great. What is better than that is having kids around the world lead that conversation. Everyone had thought it was going to be my generation that was going to be the real leading the charge for climate change, biodiversity, all this stuff, and it's not. It's you guys. And so kids have this natural understanding of what's really important in the world and what to do about it. And so getting to see kids globally connect and share their experiences and share those stories, share that enthusiasm, has been the most amazing success to me. Like, it literally has shaped what I'm planning for next year with Backyard Bio. My whole goal in my job now has shifted to wanting to set up more connections and collaborations like this, because this is what seems to really enrich people's learning in a really positive way. So that's been everything for me. And I'm so excited to dive in with that over the summer and the next year going forward.
We are excited as well, and are so looking forward to the coming years. So we wanted to know that what advice would you give to all the classrooms who have participated in the Backyard Bio event to maximize their learning?
Backyard Bio we did during May was the official Backyard Bio time. Ran a whole bunch of things during the month. And so a lot of teachers said, oh, is this something that goes beyond that? Yes, Backyard Bio is a way of looking at the world. It's not an event in and of itself. It is an event. We're going to run it in May in a big way next year as well. But if you take that mindset and you approach the world that way, I think that that's the biggest thing. If kids, if teachers, if everyone just spends that extra time looking and listening, I think that that's the biggest thing. I think that if you do that, you come to appreciate science more. I think you come to appreciate nature more. You come to recognize why conservation is so important just by paying a little more attention. And so that's what I'm hoping people will do based on this. That's my biggest takeaway. Yeah.
Absolutely. Back here in India, we noticed that we have been living with these animals, and the coexistence between human and animals is actually happening. And if we actually take out the positives and put it into more practice and make it happen more, then actually we can have a better connection with nature. And that is something that we are so looking forward to take forward in the future. So we had another question that being in close contact with explorers and scientists, in your opinion, what are the essential skills and attitudes that students should learn from them?
This is a great question. I wish I got more questions like this. There is a number one actually. You know what? I could give you a list. The number one thing that we get from a lot of explorers and scientists is that it's not a one-way track. When I was a kid, I thought, okay, if I want to be a science communicator, I've got to do this and then do this, and it's like a series of steps, and I've got to be excellent at every stage, and I've got to get A+. And I was lucky enough to actually do a fairly straight track to where I am. Almost nobody does. So follow that passion. If you have setbacks, continue on with it. There are people right now that run astronomy departments at universities in Canada and the United States. They oversee teams of like 100 astronomers, and they got like D's in school in science. So they failed early, but they were so enthusiastic about it that they persevered and they kept at it, and they just, ended up in this amazing position. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that no matter if you're struggling now, no matter if it's challenging now, maybe you're having a bad time in your life and things aren't going so well, if you really love something, keep at it and see where it leads you. And that's been the biggest lesson from every one of us. After 1,000 broadcasts, I hear that almost every single day, that message. So that's my takeaway.
Absolutely. Having passion and persistence is the key skill that we should take from scientists and explorers around the world. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Jesse. We had another question that loss and degradation of habitat, climate change, pollution, logging and poaching, invasive species, diseases, loss of plant pollinators. We have so many problems in conservation. And we wanted to know that with so less resources, with limited resources, in your opinion, which are the top 3 challenges that we need to focus on?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It can be a little disheartening to think about all the things that are facing wildlife. And the situation is, it's not good, right? We are losing a lot of species. Climate change is ramping up. Like, these are not good things. I think that there are a few big positives that are coming out of this, mainly that your generation is so passionate about it and leaving such big impact. The biggest challenge, I think, if you're going to focus, it isn't even 3, it's 2. It's climate change and biodiversity loss and habitat loss. So climate change is huge, and climate change's solutions require a lot of political will and a lot of money and a lot of time. And we're starting to round the corner on that. It's going to take some time still, but we're starting to make a difference there. Habitat loss is the biggest one to me. If you look at why species are disappearing around the world, all those other things play a role, but if things don't have a home, they can't survive. Things can have a home and it be polluted and that affect them, but they have a home. Things can have a home and have some logging and poaching going on, but they have a home. If you don't have a forest and you're a creature that relies on the forest, you're not going to survive. And so I think globally, groups are recognizing this. And so there's this big push to preserve habitats and also to rewild habitats, to bring back these ecosystems that allow creatures to thrive, which is really heartening. It's really exciting. But I think if we really tackle those two issues with really dedicated work, that'll be the biggest impact of anything that we can do. Habitat loss and climate change. Yeah.
Yes, the biggest takeaway from here is that climate change, biodiversity, and habitat loss is the worst of all these problems, and we should truly go ahead and tackle that at the earliest, focusing on SDGs number 13, 14, and 15.
Yeah.
So, just like you're communicating all these solutions, we wanted to know that from your job, which are the best parts?
This is the best part. This literal program with you might be my favorite thing I've done in my entire year. So that's pretty cool. This is so much fun. You have no idea. In general, hosting, getting to interact with amazing people is really fun, and that's great. But getting to see kids inspired and enthused to take action because of this thing that we help set up, that's the best part of my job for me, hands down.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We also wanted to know that everything has pros and cons. So yeah. What are the worst parts of your job?
I mean, everything does have pros and cons. This is really tough for me because I truly, you know what, I would be disingenuous if I said that there were actual bad parts of my job. I am absurdly lucky to have the job I have, and I said that at the top of the broadcast as well. The worst parts, when you work at home all the time, there's an inclination to not end your day at the end of the day. I've had this from a lot of colleagues, and during COVID, a lot of people have experienced this, where they used to go to work and they came home, and then their time at home was their time at home. When you work at home, sometimes you're inclined to work all day long. You're inclined to work till 10 at night. That can be a problem in your personal life. It hasn't really come to be that way for me yet, but sometimes I find myself working longer than I'd like to. Even though I love my job, it's really important to have that balance in your life. That, if anything, is the worst part of my job.
During the pandemic, that's the same thing that we have all been facing, and we absolutely need balance, and we need to learn how to control that. So we also wanted to know that from your adventures so far, which has been your scariest moment?
Oh, this is easy. So when I was in Madagascar, this print behind me on the wall, that's from Madagascar, and I had the chance to go on an expedition there in 2019. It was a really special opportunity for me, and a beautiful, unique place. When we went on our expedition, the park warden, we were traversing a national park, insisted that we take with us 2 guards with guns to make sure that we were protected in case we were attacked by bandits, which is not a situation that you find yourself in Canada very often. And so when we were out in the park, we had people notice us across a field and come running at us with blades in their hands. And then they saw our guards with guns and they went, oh, never mind. And they went a different direction. But even though it worked out fine, having people run at you with bladed weapons, who knows with what intent, was the most heart-raising, moment of my entire expedition or experiences in my life.
Oh God, that is scary.
Not the best.
Absolutely. So we also wanted to know that from your observations so far, and this is my favorite question, okay, which has been your most interesting observation and what made it more special?
You know what? There's a lot of ways I could take this answer, but there's 2 that I'm going to stick with. I said at the beginning that, to me, one of the best things about backyard bio and science in general is the alternate perspectives you can gain, that ability to really look and pay attention to things that otherwise might have seemed natural and normal. And so I had an experience when I was a student at university to do 2 things: use a telescope and a microscope, really for the first time in a serious way. And so with the microscope, we took some pond water and we put it under the microscope. And in the pond water were hundreds of animals. And there's a thing in particular called volvox, V-O-L-V-O-X, that looks like a sphere, and it's green and it's beautiful. And to think that every drop of pond water has hundreds of those, and how many drops of pond water there are, and to think of all the water in the world and like all the life that's in that, that's an amazing thing to realize. Similarly, we went on the roof of the astronomy building and I saw Saturn's rings through a telescope. Now, I've seen tons of pictures of Saturn. I'm sure you've seen tons of pictures of Saturn, Simmer, and it's amazing. It's like the jewel of the solar system. And through the telescope, it wasn't even that good. It looked like a dot with a line through it. But to see that dot with a line through it was amazing, because it confirmed with my own eyes that this planet is out there. This universe, this solar system that you sort of take for granted. It's right there. It's magical. You can observe this with your own eyes with just this different shift of perspective or technology. That is the best observations I've ever made, that they help shape my entire view of life.
Absolutely. We have been learning about different types of microorganisms. We had learned about that, but we haven't got the opportunity to actually see it through a microscope because of the pandemic. So we really hope to go ahead and watch those microbes, like you mentioned with the pond water, but reading about those experiments and gaining more knowledge about planets like you mentioned, like Saturn, and observing the night sky and in the clear sky, it is absolutely amazing. And those are the biggest learnings that you actually have apart from the textbooks. So, right, that was truly fun. And maintaining the tempo. Are you ready for the rapid fire round, Mr. Jesse?
I'm ready. Let's do it, Simmer. I can't wait.
Right, the first question. In school, which was your favorite subject and why did you like it?
So science throughout my entire school years, and then when I got older, biology. I love nature. I love wildlife. That's no surprise after all these other questions. So hands down, biology.
We love bio and STEM too. What were your hobbies when you were a child?
Ooh, I read a lot of books. Reading was truly my biggest hobby. My fiance is a big reader too, so we sort of bonded over that. I read every single book in my school library when I was a little kid. I try and read, if I can, about 100 books a year. I love reading. I find it's the best way of opening up the world, of learning more about other things. And fiction, you talked about fantasy earlier. I love reading fantasy and science fiction and all these things to see how other people have created worlds. That was my biggest hobby. And baseball. So I love watching baseball games. We have the Toronto Blue Jays here. And so I watched a lot of baseball when I was a kid alongside my reading.
So you are an avid reader, and back here in Bangalore, most of the STG Warriors love playing basketball and cricket as well. Right now, like at your current age, what are your hobbies right now, and have they changed from when you were a kid?
Ooh, I haven't been asked about my hobbies in ages. I still love to read. The bookshelves behind me, these are all things that I'm reading right now. I think I've got 2 books on the go as we speak. So I love that. I love hiking. If I can get out anywhere, if I can go for a walk, I'm there anywhere in the world. I never say no to a walk. So that's a lot of fun. These are very simple things, but they're really, I really love doing them. I'm trying to think of other, you've stumped me on my own life. Those are the 2 biggest. If I'm not working, if I'm not just hanging out, relaxing at home, I'm probably reading or I'm probably on a walk somewhere.
What places would you like to explore and why?
So I will say this truly and honestly. When I've had the chance to talk to explorers around the world, there are 2 places that consistently they say are the most unique and amazing places on this planet. India and Indonesia. So for that reason, I'd love to come to see you guys in person. That would be amazing. There's very little of this planet that I would not like to explore. I've been very, very fortunate in my life to be able to go on adventures to many countries now. It's been some of the most special times in my life. Everywhere. I'm very much hoping to get to every continent in the not too distant future and many other countries. But I think, after this conversation, I might have to start with India to come see you, because it's just like, it's been the best time. And you guys are so passionate that if it's this exciting, I ought to make it my first stop, I think.
We would love to have science communicators like you back here in India. And we also have another question. Well, your favorite animal, we would like to know which one is it and why.
Ooh, it hurts every biology lover at heart. It's so hard to pick. I always loved big predators. I love anything with a lot of teeth. So tigers, great white sharks, saltwater crocodiles really appeal to me. The 2 that always seem to jump out in the water are whale sharks and manta rays, because I think they're just like pure magic. They're just the most beautiful, amazing animals on this planet, I'd say. I would love to have the chance to swim with them at some point in my life. Best animal I've ever seen live was a humpback whale breaching. We saw a whale jump 6 times in a row out of the water. That is an unbelievable experience to see something that size doing that. It's just mind-blowing. Yeah.
Well, we are going to go ahead and read about more about these whales. And there's a last question of the rapid fire round. Imagine that you were in a world where you could transform into any superhero and you could have any superpower. So who would you choose and which power would you have?
Oh, wow. So I'm a huge superhero fan. You have to understand that like the Marvel movies for me were like between, I guess, 15 and like 20. The best time I ever spent in a movie theater in my life was the last Avengers movie. So I love this. Captain America. And the reason is that, I mean, he's got the super strength. He's got all that going on. But he was given the super strength because he had this sense of ethics and morals and values that really guided him and made him sort of the person to lead the charge. And I think that is something that's missing from other superheroes, not all of them, but the idea of you have that power and you ought to use it for the right reasons in the right ways to help people in the best possible way. So I like that's the ethic of the character Captain America. So I'll stick with that. Plus you get a really cool shield, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, so that's my pick.
Well, that was the end of the rapid fire round, and Captain America truly inspires us all with his roles and responsibilities. As we come to the near of the end of our episode, we come to the three most important questions of the podcast. So,
Okay.
The first one is that who was your biggest inspiration in life?
My mother. I know I said Steve Irwin earlier, and I love Steve Irwin, and I love David Attenborough, and I love their passion and enthusiasm for nature. My mother is the most genuine, down-to-earth, wise person that I ever ran across in terms of kindness and empathy, which are the most important traits for anyone. Never mind science communicator, never mind anything else. If you go through life with kindness and empathy and understanding other people and where they're coming from and caring about them, I don't think there's a better gift you can have than that. And to whatever degree I possess those traits, they are entirely because of her influence. So that's my answer.
Moms are truly superheroes and they inspire us all with their lovely skills, and everyone's moms are the best in the whole wide world.
Yeah, they sure are.
Right. So, were there any lines of inspiration that were given to you and you would like to pass along to the others?
Ooh, no pressure at all. You know, we talked earlier about the fact that a lot of scientists and explorers end up where they are just through perseverance and following their passion. It's common, it's sort of trite at this point, but it's so true. You know, you don't need to end up in something as a career. You don't need to follow it for your whole life, but be sure to leave room for the things that you truly enjoy. A lot of kids ultimately lose sight of that. It's interesting for me. I'm an adult, but I feel more connected to kids in many ways because I carry that sense of, I guess, enthusiasm and wonder. And so it's interesting to see over time how people sort of lose that. They stop looking at things, they stop paying attention, and they forget that there's so much magic in the world. And I think for me, that's my biggest piece of inspiration or advice to pass along, is that there is a lot of magic in the world itself and in people, mostly in people. And I think if people recognize that, it can lead to a really much more fulfilling and exciting life.
Understanding the different perspectives and connecting and forming human connections, those are the biggest learnings that we are having right now.
Yeah.
Well, we come to the last question of the podcast. As children, what can we do to make the world a better place?
You can care about the world around you. Can really care, and you guys do. And I don't think this just applies to children, but caring in general. Don't be apathetic. It's the worst of the traits in the world to look at a problem and say, that doesn't concern me. I don't want anything to do with that. Right now in the world, in 2021, I think there's been more of a push to really right a lot of wrongs in the world than there has been in 50 years even. And I think a lot of that charge is being led by people your age. And that's really special to see for me, for your teachers, for the world, is that you guys really do care. You recognize that there are issues and they don't need to be that way. And that you can make a difference in all sorts of ways. And so I think that's the essence of it. No point to go further than that. Care a lot, care always, and see where it leads you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that thought with us. Recently, when we were doing work for the World Oceans Day, we had the STG Warriors had gone through a quote which said that the worst possible thing that you can do is to expect someone else to go ahead and make the change. So why not you? Why can't you do it? Why can't you yourself do it? So be the change that you wish to see in the world, and that has been our motto and our biggest inspiration in our club. So in an ocean, every drop counts, and that is something that you have amplified through this podcast episode. So thank you so much, Mr. Jesse Hildebrand, for being a part of our journey and a nature lover. You're a nature lover who inspires with his passion, perseverance, and his energy. And you inspire children like us and all of the STG warriors through your digital program like Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants and by the changes that you are doing to the world. And it was lovely talking to you, sir.